Good. All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the Stronger Man U stream of the week. And here's what we're gonna do. Now, my name, if you don't know me, I'm sure you do if you're logging in here. My name's Bud Jeffries, and we're gonna talk about some cool stuff tonight. And the first thing I really want to start talking about, I want to say hi to everybody. You know what? You logged on. We had such a good time hanging out and doing this last week and the week, and it's just cool. We're gonna talk. We're going to talk from now on. Generally, the format for this is going to be this, okay? We're going to cover two topics, and here's how this is going to work. We're going to cover one physical topic and one mental or spiritual or metaphysical topic, okay? Something to help you with life, something to help you with whatever else you want to do. And thank you guys for hanging out with us, for logging on, for whatever you're doing. Man, we just really appreciate everybody who's been so cool about this. And for Ustream for putting this thing together. Man, this is just awesome. I had such a good time interacting with people with the questions. So don't be afraid to jump in and ask questions. Do what you need to do. Now, last week Noah was with me, and he had an appointment this week, but he may get out early and join us again anyway. So we may stop in the middle for him to join us. It's all good. What I'm going to talk about this week and what I think people need to know in life, man, we're going to talk about unshakable confidence. And, I think people start, man, they just waste their whole life. They miss their whole life because of fear, because they're afraid to try, because they don't have the confidence in themselves. And so I want to start defining that and talking to you about that in this way, okay? What it's not and what I mean by that. And it's easy to mistake confidence, and a lot of people will sometimes even misread confident people with other things, okay? And you may be criticized once you become confident into one of the things I'm about to talk about, okay? So confidence is not arrogance, okay? It's not the guy who says he's been everywhere 3 times, done everything twice, seen everything. It's not the guy, okay? It's not the guy who will lie to increase himself. It's not the guy who believes he literally knows everything or could do absolutely anything, everything in the world. Now, believing you could build the ability to do anything or everything with the right work, that is part of confidence. But believing that you just automatically come out of the box that way, that's idiocy and arrogance. That's not what we're talking about, okay? We're also not talking about bragging or a braggadocious spirit or manner about the way that you do things, okay? So, you know what? Confidence is not needing to tell everybody everything that you do or you have done every time you meet them. All right. Now, it's one thing in a marketing standpoint. It's one thing when you're introducing yourself somewhere and people need to know certain things about you. But if you're walking up to the people in the grocery store and telling them, yeah, I used to be the Tiddlywinks world champion or whatever it is you're supposed to do, listen, confidence is not that. Confidence is an inner belief that radiates out into what you're doing. Okay. It is not bravado. Okay. Bravado, that false bravado especially, is what comes out of fear. Okay, so that's the guy who's nuts and tries everything even though he's afraid, or who says he's never afraid of anything and never has any rational thought because he's either so afraid or so ill at ease with himself, so insecure, so non-confident that he acts that way. And that's not what we're talking about either. Okay, and it's not what I call bullying weakness either. Now, here's what I mean. Okay, bullies pick on people that they can get away with picking on. Okay, that's not confidence. A real man, a real person, does the action or takes the step or whatever it is, regardless of the circumstance or the fear. Okay, so if you're a 6 foot tall, 285 pound guy who knows everything in the world, or who's not. Here's the analogy I'm giving you. Who's a trained fighter? No, no, I was going to say knows everything about fighting. That's not what I mean. Nobody does that. But I mean, you get the picture, okay? And you jump on a 150-pound person who's never seen the inside of a ring in their life, uh, that's not confidence. But if you take on whatever battle is necessary, even if the opponent is bigger or more scary, that's follow through of confidence, even if you're likely to lose. Okay? There's always intelligence to be mixed with everything that you do. And I'm not saying to be ill-advised in the things you do, but if you don't live your life with some confidence, you're just literally going to waste and miss the things that you could have. And man, there's a lot of life and world out there to see. You could be awesome. So for me, building confidence starts with a faith and belief. Okay, and you have to learn to develop faith in yourself. But there's a very particular one here. Okay, I speak to kids all over the country, and you can say certain things in certain schools, some things you can't. I've been very open about my belief in God, but some people don't like that word or whatever. I'm not going to run from it or say anything different than I actually believe. But if you term God as the universe or whatever it is, if you use like the intelligent design idea or whatever, I don't think you can get away from the fact of this: God or the intelligent design of our universe, somehow or another, if you literally scientifically look it out, spent special time and ability making you who you are. So we see ourselves as not special, and because of that, we're not confident. But literally, every part of the universe, something in it, took the time to make you exactly who you are. Okay, that means number one, no matter what your imperfections, they're okay, and you're supposed to be there, and you can still act with confidence even though you're imperfect. And number two, that God Himself loves you enough to do that. So if the God of the universe spent special time to love you, to make you who you are, it's actually acting against goodness to act like you're not confident at all. Now, again, we're not talking about being falsely confident, falsely bravado, braggadocious in what you do. It's not what I mean. But learning to have that beginning step, okay, is a brilliant thing, and it's a life changer, because if you understand that about yourself, and even if you believe in evolution, okay, something special, and I'm talking about pure evolutionary theory, not mixed evolutionary theory or whatever you're talking about, something special still happened for you had to be here, okay? And if you got the faith to believe in any one of those theories, and everybody does from some spiritual aspect, you got to believe in one or the other. You got to have something to say about that. Then you can learn to understand that there was special energy one way or another that made you here, and that way you have an ability, you have something about you that makes you ready to do what you need to do, and you can begin to learn and feel confident about yourself, and have faith that it's behind you, the universe, that God is literally behind you. I just literally believe that. I don't think there's a way around to having true confidence unless you literally believe that's there. Um, Now, I am going to address that in a particular way, and here's what I mean. Uh, that is all based on faith, which is based on making a decision, and that decision is based on making a belief. Okay, so I make the decision that that's what I choose to believe. But here's the thing: that power is amazing, because when you choose to believe that, that is your reality. So you're acting out of your reality. When you're acting out of your reality, whatever you believe is what you act on, and that becomes the most real thing in the world for you. Even if you don't believe it a certain way, consider it like a placebo effect. I mean, it's been proved that humans, what they believe, can heal them, can make them amazing. If you believe you can be great at something, can be confident, then make yourself that way. But choose to believe the thing that makes you feel great about yourself, which will make you act in confidence. Now, I will say this, okay? Um, it, in the hardcore world that I, like to play in, and of strength guys, fight guys, that kind of thing. One of the most popular movies and books for the guys who read, used to be popular, is Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. Okay, and there's a line in there that is the antithesis of what I'm saying. You are not a special snowflake. You are not different. Now, here's what I mean, and I agree and disagree with that. Okay, every human being on this planet is physiologically different from the other person, but we all play under the same rules. If you don't work, you don't get what you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, so that really has more to do with entitlement than anything else. And confidence is not entitlement. Okay, confidence does not mean that I expect the world to meet me halfway, that I expect the world to just crumble to my whim, or give whatever I want, or it owes me something. Nobody in the world owes you anything. But you need that confidence to act on the fact that nothing and no one in the world owes you anything, to get what you actually want, to be who you actually can be. And I think there's another realization here. We are often not confident because we literally believe that other people are better than us. And at an early age, somebody said some things to me, and it came into my mind that even though I was far from perfect, okay, don't come from money, never had a lot of anything like that, had great clothes, had a car accident that basically overnight turned me into a fat kid, and was pushed around for that and that kind of thing. But here's the thing that struck me: nobody on this planet is really any different. And here's the fallout of that thing about entitlement, as well as, yes, we are incredibly special, but the balance of that is, because we're all unique, we're all the same. Okay, everybody on this planet puts their pants on the same way you do, metaphorically speaking. Okay, in that situation, no one on the planet has any more intrinsic value than you. And because of that, you can learn to act with confidence. If every one of us is totally unique, every one of us is a completely separate, autonomous being, every one of us has exactly the same value. There is no difference in those things. So because of that, you have no reason to feel inferior to any human being. Now, my wife and son like to tease me about that and say, "Hey, he's a giant pod. He 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 doesn't get uncomfortable around the other humans. That's an old joke from one of the old Seinfeld episodes. But I don't get uncomfortable around other humans because I believe deeply at my absolute core that no other human has any more value than me. I'm not more special than them. They're not more special than me. We are all literally on even footing. And because we're on even footing, there is no reason for any of them to have the power to make me nervous or less than confident. And I can act with total confidence because they're as good as me. I'm as good as them. It's total equal footing. And once you decide to make those decisions, that makes you incredibly powerful. Um, anyway, don't. And the other thing about confidence that I really wanted to express, or some of the other things I wanted as I work through this here, is you got to make a decision that confidence is not something I'm going to do just because I'm fired up right now. Okay, confidence is not a thing where I'm going to feel it even only on the good days. Okay, I feel incredibly confident today. No, those decisions are permanent. They are barrier island decisions. They are chain holds in your life that hold you to what you believe, where you want to do, what you're going to do, that will get you to where you're going to go. And once you make that decision, make it a permanent deal. So here's what I mean by that. If you feel confident only because you had a good day or because you happen to win that day, that's not confidence. That's just excitement from what you happen to feel that day, or you happen to have, things lined up perfectly for you to feel that way. We need to move some chairs here for Noah is coming into the discussion.
Sure.
And so I'm going to slide over here and make sure we're in the camera while I'm pausing. You want to tell me where I'm at here? Are we good?
Noah could slide over a little more than
Noah, slide over a little bit so we're in the camera. You have to excuse us. We're technological barbarians being hosted by our lovely wife and mom here, getting this right. So, wow, we should have got a different chair for you. Although if you sit on the same height as me, you're way taller, so it doesn't really, then I look short. So we're all. He's not sitting on the ground, folks. No matter what he said. I hope there's no like.
No.
He's from here. That's not going to make you feel confident at all. That's not.
I think they can see most of me.
Okay. So, being confident in an ever-changing climate, okay, is something to cultivate. All right. If you lose, if you get rocked, and listen, we all know that most of the world has gotten rocked in the last little while. You know what I'm saying? In the last 5 to 10 years, man, the economics of the entire world has changed, and people who rule the world for the last 25 years. Their businesses exploded and fell apart, and that can be an absolute confidence shaker. And there's something in your life that will eventually become a test of your confidence. Practicing that confident movement every day is going to be part of the deal. And realize that, you know what? You didn't just blow it if you had a bad day and don't feel confident anymore. Okay, that day. You just have to keep back, step back, rethink the situation, calm down, and see those anchored beliefs that God made you special, that you're as good as anybody else on this planet, and then you do the rest of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today. So where's the other thing about that? Okay, find your uniqueness and use it. Okay, I'm going to probably horribly butcher a quote from Albert Einstein right now, who said that there's and this is just a paraphrase. He said there's genius everywhere. He said that everyone has a genius, but if you make a fish try to climb a tree like a monkey, he'll always think he's an idiot. Yeah, okay, and I'm sure I horribly butchered that, but you get the point, okay? Everybody has talents in certain things, other things like that. Now, eventually, when you spend some time doing the work and developing yourself and beginning to constantly keep that reassured mindset, it won't matter if you're doing something talented at all, but especially when you're a kid or when you're other things like that, and you're beginning to move on this journey toward really, truly unshakable confidence. Trying to force somebody into somebody else's mold, trying to make somebody do a certain thing a certain way, is a recipe for making them feel like they're not good enough or not confident enough. Find your unique thing. I'll give you a quick example between me and Noah here. And I know many of you who are watching this who really want to talk about the confidence thing don't care about the physical stuff, but I'm going to give you a physical example. Noah and I will both work as strongman, bending steel. That's part of the thing.
Good.
And I bend a very specific way. I bend short steel a very specific way. I bend double under like right that. That's right.
Way.
And it's the total wrong way for Noah to do it.
Yeah, I can't.
It's the total opposite.
I look like a goofball trying to do it.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. So he learned from me. He studied that way, but it just didn't work. And then he got around somebody different, and showed him a different technique.
Which is double over.
And that doesn't work for me. But because he found the thing that fit him, he began to actually be confident in what he was doing there, and all of a sudden he exploded into actually being able to use what he was able to do.
I never would have bent the red nail if I
never would have done that if you hadn't learned. Yeah, and you tell me, once you got that feel, once you this is right, you began to feel more confident, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I actually can do this, and that success breeds over and over again. And now I have not seen you in years now approach a piece of steel without saying, yeah, I can bend this. Because
you've seen them chew me up and spit me out.
Well, yeah.
I haven't said, oh, this is going to chew me up and spit me out.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about with here is the thing. Okay, some of this stuff, you approach it with confidence even if it beats you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, and you won't bend the 60 if you...
That's right. If you don't do it. That's right. If you don't bend the easiest stuff, if you don't approach with confidence, you don't approach like you're going to do it. And actually, there are physiological things that happen when your mind works confidently. You will literally turn your hormones on, your muscles and stuff will work without barriers when you are working confidently. When you find the thing that's unique to you, when you practice it. But when you do it the opposite way, you literally will take away from your physical strength, and it's every other thing. You won't be as smart, you won't be as physically or spiritually powerful, you won't be as successful at anything if you just don't feel like you're going to be that way, and you got to cultivate that on a regular basis. And that starts with finding the way that works for you. Another way about this, something many people are really that don't have any confidence about, is their mind or the way they learn. They don't think they can learn things. But it's about learning the way that you learn, not the way that other people learn. I think that's a big, and you're another great example of that. In that, I think I told everybody in one of the weeks before that he's dyslexic, and he doesn't learn the way I learn. We're opposite end of the spectrum on that.
That's actually great. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you? Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about different systems and things like that. If you're gonna add up, just say something stupid simple like 5 times 10.
Right.
How would you do it?
Well, I'd memorized that as a table as a kid, so it just adds up. But if I had to add it up, I would write it out or add it up or whatever. And it totally, I know that the way I add tens or the way is totally opposite of the way you do.
Yeah.
I mean, my mind mathematically, my mind from a reading perspective works dead opposite of yours is total opposite. Yeah. I would say 50 because
Yeah. He's driving an automatic. I'm driving a stick shift. I gotta go. Well, if this is this, and I gotta go back here. Well, if this is this, then I gotta come up here, and this is this, and I gotta go up here. And then, okay. Well, I'm at the same answer, but I still have to take different steps.
Right. And if I tried to force him to learn the way I learn or do the things the way I do, he would never be able to do things. I never
would have graduated the 8th grade.
That was an awesome Beverly Hillbillies reference if you didn't get that. Okay. And here's the thing. It would destroy his confidence if you try to force him into a mold that doesn't fit him. Okay? And when you try to force somebody into a mold that doesn't fit them, you take away their ability to work, their ability to build repetitive success, which is one of the next things. And that's one of the things I think about. If you really want to build confidence, you got to get moving. I don't see anybody who's static in life who's confident. People that just sit on the couch and either aren't physically or mentally or spiritually moving in some way, they don't build confidence because you're just literally existing, you're doing nothing, you're not doing, and you don't have a track record to draw from. Does that make sense? In other words, you don't, but like, and the same as the steel bending or even reading or learning doing it or shooting would be an example of that. Once you hit a target, you feel like you can hit the next one. Mm-hmm. And you stack up a million targets where you hit them over and over again. Now you're confident I can hit that.
You might see that target 4 to 5 different shoots before you hit it. But once you hit it, you start hitting it more consistently. 9 or 10 shoots later, that target that was your kryptonite is now, okay, I see that target, now I'm comfortable with that target.
Absolutely. And here's where my advice on this particular thing. Get moving. But when you're going to do that, start slowly with easier things and build a track record of success. Okay, for instance, most people, if I go out and they've never lifted a weight before and I stick up 500 pounds on their shoulders, they're going to feel like, holy crap, this is the heaviest thing in the world, and it will set a memory of fear.
Yeah.
And it'll set a memory of failing into a thing versus once I start them with what they can handle and deal with, and that's anything, that's any area of life. It's just the physical is just an analogy of that. If I start that, they'll feel like they're falling apart.
Yeah.
But if I start them slow and get them a track record of winning and succeeding, or whatever that you're doing in every part,
and something to
you'll feel great about it, and you'll keep getting more confident, and the more confident you are, the better you are to win.
And again, taking off the general subject here and going to physical, you've got a good system about that. You'll put 500 pounds on somebody's shoulders, and then tell them, oh well, it's actually 300.
Right.
And then they go, boom, do it. Oh look what you actually did.
And that is a direct result of their confidence, because they have the mental ability to. And how many people have you seen me pull that on? I mean, literally over and over and over again. A good coach in weightlifting often will do that. Will not even let the person know how much they're lifting, or they'll tell them a different number than it is, because they understand that psychology, that mental confidence is the entirety of the thing.
Yeah.
And the truth is, they had the physical ability to do the thing, but they didn't have the mental ability to believe in that thing until they did that thing.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge, and that's a great physical trick, but that's a trick you can do in any other
one
thing.
Was always the isometrics.
Oh, doing those
people have no concept of time when they're in isometrics. He
Yeah.
said, oh, you're almost at 3 minutes. They're at 7.
So again, you are so much more powerful in your abilities than you have confidence to move in. And I don't say this in a braggadocious way about me or him or that kind of thing, but the reason I'm able to do some of the things I'm able to do, and the reason I live the way that I live, is because I honestly believe I can do those things. And you know what? But even I've been doing this for 26 years. It's a lifetime journey of gaining more and more confidence. And what's weird is I've hit even another stride of this at 40 years old. I've been able to do some things this year that I almost wouldn't have believed a human could do, let alone myself. It's a different perspective and it's a practice thing. And once you build up that success, you just continue to go and build and build and build, and you get more and more and more confident. And you learn lessons along the way, because you're going to fail. But eventually you conquer that fear, and that's another part. Because you build those small successes, you do begin to conquer fear. I talked with a buddy of mine, Jim Anderson, about this and about one of the physical things I do with people to conquer fear. And here's one of the things that you can do to conquer fear as well as help build more confidence. From a physical level, I talk about doing partial reps and that kind of thing, because it's extremely controlled, it's very safe, it's a very short movement, and you can do a massive amount of weight. And what you're doing, essentially, from the perspective of whole life, is you're dipping your toe in the water of a thing in a way that doesn't beat you down. Okay? In other words, if you want to fight in the UFC, don't show up at a tournament without ever having stepped in a gym and say, I'm going to fight tonight.
Ain't gonna work.
That's a horrible way to do that things. Just take things a step at a time and kill that fear a step at a time. If you want to fight a live grizzly, start with a cub. And build up. Don't start with an 1,800-pound bear.
Maybe you can start with a black bear.
Don't do. But and within that, eventually, once you start conquering that fear a piece at a time, you get more and more confident. You eventually are going to keep doing bigger and bolder things. It's going to get easier and easier to do. Everything you do is getting easier and easier to work on. And then in the bear analogy, once you want to go a 20-minute round with a 1,500-pound grizzly, you might go a 2-minute round with a 2,000-pound polar bear. Meaning this: if I want to squat 500 pounds, I'll do an 800-pound partial. If I want to create 17 books, I'll create a plan for bigger than that. If I want to build my mind and say I'm going to read 50 books, I might look at or build a way to expand my mind to something harder.
Definitely start with Dr. Seuss. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, start with Dr. Seuss.
I like all the pictures.
I like the pictures. Find a safe way, and there is some way. Okay, I'll give you, for instance, with that. The reason fighters in a ring on a regular basis, when they start with pads. They wear pads, they wear headgear, they wear things that you don't wear in a normal fight, because you're systematically being safe, but you're desensitizing yourself from fear.
Oh, and you'll develop a horrible flinch. So if you start out without pads.
Oh yeah, you'll look like you're getting hit. Same with a gun. There's a trick that people use to stop fear with that. They use what's called a release trigger.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of pains on that.
Yeah, well, and here's what that is. Okay, a lot of guys, when Noah's a professional level shooter, he shoots, but it's an easy thing once you shoot thousands and thousands of rounds. If your gun doesn't fit exactly right or kicks you very hard, almost anybody can develop what they call a flinch.
Horribly.
You know, which is where you've been kicked enough times, and we develop this in life too. You lose a few times, you start to get a flinch about trying. And you'll need to find a way to work through that to upper level build your confidence so you don't flinch in life either. And that goes back to making those ground root decisions, sticking to them, practicing them a day at a time, going them over and over and over again, and staying with it. And here's what happens with that. You got to back off. You may have to start back again, lower, slower, build back up. A release trigger is this. A normal trigger goes, when you squeeze it, it goes bang. A release trigger, explain that to them. You hold the trigger down.
You hold the trigger down, and when you actually want to shoot, you let it go.
You let it go. It's the opposite.
This will, if you've never used one, it will mess you all up for a couple minutes.
Right.
And eventually, your brain start working with it, but if you ever put a release trigger on somebody that has a bad flinch, you always watch them do it. They go through. It's supposed to look like this. Bang. Follow through. Next target. Bang. Somebody with a release trigger looks like this. Bang. Bang.
You're going to work through problems is the analogy there. Okay? But you'll find a way. There's some kind of release trigger in everything that you do. There's something you can do that will undo the flinch, okay? So, you know what? If you trained up to, and okay, a fighter's a great analogy of this. You know, they train and fight and go to a championship level fight and lose. Well, when they go back to the dojo, they don't fight the next toughest guy. You start up. You start easy again. You rebuild confidence. You do whatever you need to do to keep that confidence there. And just because you lose doesn't mean you're not as good as you think you are. It just means that you're everybody has it. Everybody goes through those times. One thing I will say about this that we don't do is we over imagine the consequences of losing.
Absolutely.
And we mess it up. We actually destroy our own confidence, and we certainly destroy our own performance when we over or something and there is a little bit of under imagining the consequences. So here's what I mean. Okay, the guy who rode the barrel or over Niagara Falls, he under imagined the consequences. Okay,
a lot.
That's not confidence. That's stupidity. Okay. But most of the time, most of the things in our life, okay, we look at like this. I got a job, but if I lose that job, the world's going to come to an end. No, it's not. You just have to restart. It's not a reason for you to destroy your confidence or lose your confidence, because only you can take it away. You have to let it be taken away. And what we overemphasize this, we think, okay, if I lose a tournament, if I don't make a lift, if I sell a product and it doesn't do what I think it's supposed to do, I've messed it up. It's over. I shouldn't be doing it. No, doesn't mean your life pattern should change. Doesn't mean things should be, different. It just means that things don't work. We don't have total control of the universe, but it doesn't mean you can't keep working through and going back to those steps. Practice, build the confidence, destroy fear, believe in yourself, revisit those beliefs over and over and over again. One of the things I'll say this is you've got to get past external validation. Okay, and part of that is the analogy I used earlier is everybody puts their pants on the same way. Many people are not confident because they don't look exactly the same as somebody else. Or we see pop culture who constantly hammers, you got to be this way to be perfect, and other than that, you don't deserve to be good. And a lot of people love to bang on people and say, you should hate yourself enough to change. That's idiocy. Nobody stays permanently changed and is happy with their life if you just change because you hate yourself. If you change because you want to make yourself into a specific thing, because you care about yourself and you have confidence you can do that, that's lasting, real change. Other people's validation means nothing. And you got to eventually build a shield on this. And I say this in two ways, okay? Nobody else gets to tell you whether you're good or bad. Only you. That's all there is to it. Because if you don't begin to believe that way, you never know when the tide turns. You never know when popularity swings. You never know when, if you base your validation on external things, that can flip and go away at any moment. And that's not a rock to anchor your life on to be truly confident. And the one thing I will say is you also got to protect it from two things, okay? Culturally, we're at a time, we're at a place where, like in relationships with people and in just people in general, it's a popular thing to try to destroy people's confidence. Okay, I'll give you an example for this. This is something that gets on my nerves, a little bit on my wife's nerves or whatever. If you look at the last 15 to 20 years of TV sitcoms, you will rarely see a major character that's male, that's a confident, competent male. Very, very rarely. Really? He's always portrayed as a buffoon. And in that, that's a societal image that's being pushed on people, and you got to block those things from yourself. You are not, the guy who has to take orders from everybody so he can get it right, or the guy who constantly messes it up. And even though it's written as funny, and I know that, but it's such a pervasive stereotype that you got to learn to block that. Not absorbing somebody else's problem just because, just because somebody thinks it's funny. And you got to also understand, read into those things that there are agendas behind that stuff. There are things that
like the warning. It's kind of like if you have to imagine the warning at the beginning of Jackass on every TV show you've ever watched.
Don't do this at home. Do not watch this. Yeah.
Do not do this. Probably shouldn't be watching this to start with.
Yeah. And there's exactly the truth, okay? And even the smart, funny ones and the family ones often portray one or more of the characters as, they portray them as less than they actually are, just to make situations funny. And I understand that. That's funny. And, everybody understands. But we absorb it as a thing. And okay, I'll give you an example of this. Everybody Loves Raymond. Okay.
Very good show.
Which the main character is portrayed as incompetent, and when you really look back at it, as incompetent and juvenile by his wife and his mother. Okay, that's a major male stereotype. That's one of the major ones. And this, and so it's always, what kind of silly trouble is this guy going to get into this week because he's an incompetent buffoon, and incompetent as well as unconfident. You know what? Don't let that be the thing that raises your kids. Don't let that be the thing that gets in your head. And don't literally build a shield about it. And build a shield against negativity in people in your life. Now, after a while, once you become truly top-end level confident in what you do, I think you can actually almost put the shield down. Okay? I went through this as a young guy starting a business on the internet. And the internet is the bastion of anonymous idiots. Okay? It's a wonderful tool. It's the greatest invention of information in mankind since in the beginning of mankind, other than the written word and the production of books. But it's the next step. I mean, it really is. But it's also the most anonymous thing, where any knucklehead can sit at home and write anything in the world about you. And thousands upon thousands of the times that's happened in the last 15 years. But after a while, I am totally not bothered by it anymore. And it takes time to develop both that confidence in yourself as well as the shield to, hey, listen, if you say something negative to me, it's out. And if you say it a bunch of times, you're out. And if I literally will prune that out of my life. We're not going to allow that to happen, because that is a damaging thing, both to your confidence and your success in life, into being who or what you want to be. But you got to develop that shield too, to not only to protect the thing you're building, to make yourself more and more confident in what you do. I believe that's true. I believe. Okay, we had an example of a friend of Noah's recently who I'm not going to mention anybody's names or say anything like that, but is a young up-and-coming guy in the thing that he's doing, and he happened to hang out with an established professional, and the guy just was over the top nasty to him and dressed him down, even for no circumstances, more than likely because that guy just happened to be wanting to sabotage this person. And he did. He effectively did. He blew him out of the water for like a week
or two.
And he effectively destroyed a young kid's confidence in what he was doing, even though this kid's really good at what he does.
Extremely.
Because of that. So, it's one thing to get past anonymous idiots. You got to get past that. It's another thing to sometimes we're attacked most, our confidence is attacked most by people that we love or people that we respect. And that's a huge thing. And eventually you want to make that so strong that nobody gets to say any different. And I don't care who they are, your opinion is settled in a way that no matter who they are, no matter what their opinion is, they don't get to change you. But that's long-term building, and that's and first of all, if you do that to a kid, you're a knucklehead. You can tell everybody in the world I said that. I'll stand behind that with anybody on this planet. That just is not how you treat people. And you want to build that confidence as kids, okay, you do exactly what I told. You teach them core beliefs, you practice it every day, and you protect them from negative people. I don't protect him from anybody anymore unless it's 40 feet high with fangs.
And truth be told, also after a while, it's almost insulting.
Yeah. Well, you don't need it. Yeah. Well, true. Okay. That brings up the other issue: is the over mothering, or okay. I don't need to, because he's built up enough confidence and enough ability to do whatever he needs to do, and I don't need to watch him anymore. He's past that point. Mothering somebody ain't gonna make him confident either. that just ain't gonna do it.
No.
And we know, you're talking about building your kids. You all know that too. You've seen kids who, man, any little scratch, any little scrape, any little thing, get so coddled that they never get to build their own confidence because they never get to experience anything. You're going to experience life and cuts and failure in life, and if you don't let them do that and learn that you are confident enough to get past it, you build that real ability.
Yeah.
It never
And
happens.
those, man, that nobody all that also hurt him more because nobody ever went hang out with that guy.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, I said that in all that to say I don't protect him anymore from anything that's, if it's not an alien invasion, I ain't worried. Okay, but when he was little, if you spoke to him in a negative way, you'd be speaking to me about 4 seconds later. And I don't mean that in the correction, hey, you got to stop. You can't. I don't mean in letting them run wild or being overprotective in that way. But I mean in that if you walked up and were to call my child stupid, you better be walking out the door with some severe armament, and you better be able to get out of the country before I can find you. And I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Here's what I mean. You literally don't allow that around your children. You want to build a kid with unshakable confidence, you make them do it. But you give them real ability and give them tests. Give them things that happen. Now, I don't mean like, public school testing, that's a joke. But I mean give them things that give them the ability to build up and test and build their own confidence. Build their own, essentially the manhood stone idea.
Yeah.
Once you cross this line, once I've done this thing, I am now a man, or I am now a woman, or I am now a fully capable, functional adult.
I feel like we're using too many movie titles here. We watch too much TV. Also, something about building confidence. What was that movie with Jim Carrey? Yes, Man.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Now he took it a little bit the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Not, you say yes to absolutely everything, but you almost kind of have to. You kind of have to do that to build confidence. You have to, because there's a lot of people. Both of us know. Some people we're related to that if you ask them if they want to do something, it's well, I don't know, because this potentially could happen.
Right.
Yeah, it potentially could, but at the same time, an asteroid could potentially hit the Earth right now and kill them here. You can't.
Living your life in fear and worrying about everything happening and trying to see being intelligent about consequences, what I said before, smart. Not jumping in the barrel to ride down the falls.
Not poking the bear.
But not walking across the street because, lightning might strike or a cricket might jump on you or something.
A Prius may come screaming around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, somebody probably got hit by a Prius and we just defended them.
Yeah. In relation to that with your kids and what we were doing with that is constant self-programming, okay? So this is something I talk to kids about in building their confidence and building what you want to do. Listen, if you are constantly saying bad things about yourself or constantly allowing somebody to say bad things about you or your employees or your kids, or if you're saying it to them, you'll literally eventually destroy their confidence unless they've hit a point where they can't be touched. But it takes time to build up to the level. Okay? It takes time to build tank level armor, and if they're little, they're not ready for that. Building them into that particular thing. Be very protective of your kids and be protective of yourself, but constant reassurance programming, okay? Constant do your own programming. I never say bad things about myself. I broke that habit years and years and years ago. I'm not going to say bad things or unpositive things, period. Okay? And I'm never especially going to say about myself or my wife or my son or anybody that I care about in that way. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be honest if we need, constructive criticism. It just means that negativity for its sake or unconfident behavior, attitudes that pervade that negativity will just simply not be allowed and will be practiced over and over again until we're perfected. Constantly working on that, dealing with that is the perfect direction. And it always needs to be nurtured. The analogy of I got a good wolf and a bad wolf, which one grows stronger? The one you feed. Okay, well, if you feed your confidence by succeeding, by working, by doing those things, you'll get better. It gets more unshakable, and eventually you literally, I think you hit a tipping point where after you've been through some trials, you've been through some tests, you've been through enough building up of that particular thing, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't, Now, something that held me back for a while, that my wife actually said this to me. And I've worked at times as a minister, I worked at times different things or whatever, and I spent some time thinking, I know myself and that I'm not perfect. I'm not good enough to do this kind of thing. And I don't mean that I'm not as good as anybody else on the planet, but I mean that my actions aren't perfected. I've got angry too easily, or I said some things I didn't want to, or didn't act right or whatever. And one thing she said to me is, you're better at doing that not because you're perfect. You're better at doing that because you've had those problems and you're working to get past them or you're getting past them. Your weakness is often your strength. And it is your greatest opportunity to build confidence, but it is often the thing you got to step out and just literally get past the fear to get past. Okay. If you want to progress to the next level in anything that you do, okay, you take the thing you're most afraid of,
Yep.
or the thing you suck the worst at. For instance, there's
Absolutely.
got to be one particular for you. I don't know, one particular shot that always kills you. Well, maybe not him, but
Well, no. I'm picking the. You just asked me to pick the lesser of two evils.
Right.
You know.
Right. There's always one. The thing that you're the weakest at is the greatest opportunity for you to grow confidence in. So isolate, find that weakness, work on it, make it into a strength, and just step out and get past it. Because you don't necessarily have to win. You just have to try. The more you try, the better confidence you get. And realizing also that is often the greatest platform for you to speak to other people. It's easy for people to see, okay, it's easier for me to talk about being big and strong because I had a real successful track record of being big and strong. It's horrible for me to talk to people about weight loss because I had a horrible time with it until I found a way to conquer it. But often it's more helpful for me to talk to people about weight loss or spiritual issues because I had so much trouble with that. The things I find the weakest, but then you actually step into confidence and conquer, are often the things that give you the greatest platform to both build yourself as well as other people. So take that opportunity. You have something to say. Everybody has something that they could learn, they could say, they could be, they could do what they want if they actually just do it and find that thing is right. The other thing I'll say this is confidence, unshakable level confidence is literally a choice. Okay, I go through this with people sometimes, and I just don't feel good. You haven't made the choice to feel good. Choosing to be confident is kind of like the field of dreams thing. If you do it, it will come. If you build, in the movie there, we're going to the well with the movie analogies. I don't know why, but it makes sense. Okay, if you build it, they will come. That's the famous line from the movie. Yeah. If you choose confidence, it will come, even if it's not easy, even if it's shaky at first, even if you get knocked down. You got to keep choosing it over and over again, and it will just start to show up. Anything you add your intention to, your movement toward, you will eventually get if you just keep working. You agree with that?
Of course you can.
I agree with it. Right. And then I will say, I think the next thing on that is constant practice. Okay? You just don't get the things that you don't practice. You don't get the things that you don't think about, that you add your energy to on a regular basis, that you don't, think over, meditate over, pray over, do. You just don't get those things. You don't, and nothing in life gets better without practice. It just doesn't happen that way. If you're practicing on a regular basis, then that's what you got to do. That's the direction to go. So,
we have a question.
Yes.
If you believe something about yourself that other people tell you is negative, then how do you change that thought process if you fully believe it yourself?
That's very difficult to answer without a specific, you know what I'm saying, to say, just in general. But I think you have to look at why do you believe it. Okay? Now, and you have to look at the reality of what you're conditioned to believe and what's just other people's opinion versus the reality of actual reality. Okay, for instance, I'll give you a personal example from my own life. I was told ever since I was a little kid, you're bad-tempered. Don't be shaking your head. That's
I'm shaking my head.
Okay. The reality is, I was and I wasn't, and here's what I mean. I was in that I am exceptionally reactive. I'm, sometimes small things set me off. That's just the truth. I'm exceptionally competitive, both with myself and other things. So if I have a loss or if I don't make a lift that I want or whatever, you may get a powerful, short-term, hulked-out reaction. Okay, and most people see that as bad-tempered, but here's where I wasn't. Okay, I wasn't vicious with other people. okay, that's truly bad-tempered. So was I actually over the top reactive? Absolutely, that was true. That's real reality versus the association of that reality, what you're saying to me. So when I took it, they were just saying, oh, you're. When I took it for them to mean you're horrible, you're mean, you have no right to be angry. And the truth is, you do have a right to occasionally be angry. It happens to absolutely everybody, even the most Dalai Lama-esque people I know. And you do have a right to. What you don't have a right to do is do it in a damaging way to yourself or other people. I think you have to separate. You have to really be honest. Just get truly dead honest about that. And what is that about yourself? And if you know what, this may be a hard thing. Once you assess with the reality of what do they really mean, what's the real situation here, am I actually what they say or not? Okay. If they're saying something that is constructive, okay, meaning most people said that to me when I was a kid because they were trying to be constructive. Okay, uh, but the reality is they were only halfway helpful and successful in the way that they said it.
Sometimes no. Well, and also if that's something you're already sensitive about, you have to take it lightheartedly because no matter what or how they say it, it's gonna come out to you as horrible.
Mm.
No matter what it is.
And I think you have to be very conscious of what they're saying. If they're saying you have a significant real problem with a reality situation, that's one thing. If they're saying you're just bad or you're just not good enough, then that is a belief that they're trying to condition in you because they have it about themselves, and that's where you got to walk totally away from it. And if there's some steps you may have to take here, okay? Cut people as much as you possibly can that do that out of your life. I hate to say that. I hate that because I have family members that I have trouble with that you can't cut everybody out of your life. Not in a realistic way. Okay, you can, but most people aren't going to. It's not going to happen. And maybe somebody you work with where you can't, not the moment you can change jobs or whatever. But you can make the decision to change your belief about yourself, and you can make it a power struggle and a game. You can make it a strength building struggle and a game to go against it. Every time they say something negative, you say something positive. Every time they say something negative, you change the subject. Every time they say something negative about you, you go somewhere else, get away from it. Every time you say something negative about you, you double up and do something both positive. You find an outlet. You find a way to work that away to build that up about yourself. And do exactly the steps I told you. Go find something and be successful in it. Start small. Build up. Show them different. Make it a game too. I asked Peter Ragnar this one time. When you're around negative people and you're trying to live your life in a truly positive way, how do you get around it? When it's not somebody you can walk away from, it's not somebody you can get away from, it's not somebody you can change. How do you stop it? How do you do it? He said, make it a game. Make it a thing where I've come in and I win if I don't let you affect me. I win if I've chosen to be in this positive mode. I've chosen to be confident. I've chosen that whatever you say negative about me is wrong. I lose if I believe it from you. I win if I just choose not to believe it. I think those are some things that you're really going to need to work on, the reality of what it is.
Well, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And something else to add to that is an opinion from someone is literally just hot air coming out, being controlled by musculature. It literally carries no actual value. Their word is not going to come through and actually hit you like a sword or a bat. It's just merely something to be glanced at. It's if you choose to read it or not.
Right. And it's on. And
bless you.
There's the thing. It's all on you. It's all on you. How much value you put on that opinion. You know what? You have to take personal responsibility there. Okay. In that. If you got people who are hammering you with that kind of time, you just are literally in a tough situation. You got to work out and work your way through it, and that's maybe the toughest situation to build confidence in, to work away from that. But you can do that. People absolutely can do it. Take that, make it a regular game, make it a fuel that builds your fire to do the exact opposite, and to choose that about yourself. Beliefs are ingrained, but we have to choose them to believe. The more you reassure a thing, the more you hammer a thing over and over again, the more you'll believe it. But you got to make that choice in the first place. And you can choose the opposite. If they're telling you bad, you choose good. Does that make sense or help, or are we good with that? All right. What time is it? Let me grab a glass of water here, or a little bit of water.
8:50.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the physical thing for this particular time. And this week we got a brand new download coming out, Explosion Training. It's all about throwing, okay? Crazy throwing stuff or
Some
crazy.
great bloopers.
Great bloopers. Yeah, well, Noah gets to help film a lot, so he sees I fell over and another,
Yeah.
oh, that's not right. In fact, I nearly took the camera out earlier filming that. I threw a weight and I was working with in the second installment of this. The first installment is all about throwing kettlebells, but really the tool is totally irrelevant. It could be anything. You can throw anything. It doesn't matter. Anything with some weight that builds velocity, builds speed, builds power. But I threw a weight and it a 45-pound plate, and it hit just right to
Just
hit the
on the
ground
edge.
and roll. And it rolled like 20 feet in a big circle and rolled right into the camera legs and knocked the camera leg over. And my nephew just happened to dive in the way.
Tackled the plate.
Tackled it and caught the camera leg. I'm like, save the day. Save the day, Justin, my boy. Save the day. So why are we talking about this? Why this new download? What are we doing? Well, first of all, it's part of our challenge. We're going to do 12 downloads this summer, one every week. We're going to try to get the knowledge out to you, okay, to be awesome at all kind of stuff. And this is something we do on a regular basis as far as throwing stuff and workouts or whatever. It's something, because we're constantly trying to build that upper level speed and upper level power, which is speed applied to force. Okay, pure speed would be like running or hand speed in boxing, where there's no resistance. But power is speed applied against the resistance. How fast can you move a thing? And you don't really move a thing as fast as possible unless you throw it. So I think the reason behind the throwing and what we talk about with that is that throwing is the ultimate primal expression. It's the ultimate explosion. There is no hold back. Everything you do with a heavier weight, you're actually holding back. And often, even when you're punching or something like that, you're actually pulling back. But throwing is a 100% no stop explosion.
It's the literal meaning of go through it.
Yeah.
You want to swing through the golf ball. You want to punch through that guy's face.
Right.
Which, I mean, if you've done it kind of came out a lot.
So when you throw, you're using two things. Number one, you're using a weight. Now, it could be light, could be heavy, could depends on what you want to do. I prefer a moderate and then up to heavy things to throw, depending on the kind of throw you're doing. Because what are you doing? You're using a middle level resistance or a lighter level resistance to build actual explosive speed. And here's what I'm saying that this does, okay, and why I've set up this way. When you throw against those kind of objects, when you throw in this particular download, I threw kettlebells from 50 pounds up to 150 pounds. And in the next one, I threw a 45-pound plates, 100-pound plates, I threw concrete blocks, I threw a 100-pound log, a 50-pound log, different things there, okay? You can throw much lighter things, but I'm not trying to teach you how to throw a baseball, okay, which is more pure velocity. What we're doing is getting the middle section there when you throw, when you explosively train against these things, so that you're getting just enough resistance that you can actually apply power to it, so that's building your strength. But you're getting a light enough resistance that you can actually get some distance, some height, some throw behind the thing that you do, so you're actually building pure speed as well. You're sort of getting in that middle ground. So if you throw something super heavy, well, you get strong, but you don't really get very fast because you can't move it very fast. Versus if you throw something super light, okay, you can get good at throwing a thing like that, but you're not going to necessarily build power. If you throw a baseball, you're not going to get strong enough to throw a 100-pound plate. It's not going to work that way. No. But if you throw a 50-pound plate, you'll have more pure body ability that once you transfer it to a specific sport like punching and boxing or golf or speed or for like a baseball, you can apply that speed that you've already built, and you can actually reverse apply it to strength. So you might actually, your deadlift, squat, whatever might go up. So there's a bunch of tenets on how to train for strength and speed that I'm going to go through, and you talk about what we do with that as we go here. And the first thing you got to do is if you're going to be stronger, you got to train for max strength. You're going to be faster and more powerful. You got to train for max strength. Okay. In other words, it's sort of the reverse of the analogy that I just gave you about if you want to get better at throwing a baseball, you actually got to get better at squats or deadlifts. Okay. Meaning that the more pure resistance you can move, the faster you can be once you get your nerves in line. Okay. Noah is very fast with his hands, feet, etc. But a lot of that is nerve wiring because he's practiced it over and over again. But his pure ability to generate the power to move that quick comes from the heavy weight that we do. The massive 1,200-1,500 pound partial deadlifts and the 500 pound stone lift. Why? Because that unifies everything, and everything has so much power that nothing else you apply, throwing it or throwing a punch or whatever, there's literally almost no resistance. You can pick up a 500 pound rock, you can throw a 50 pound rock a long way.
Very long way.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's the total ability of the muscle to contract, period, and then you wire it in with speed training to get faster, and then if you do it right with the throwing and the explosion type what we're doing, you get play back and forth. You get better pure speed, you get better power or speed against light resistance, power and speed against middle resistance, and strength against top end resistance. The first thing is top end strength. Listen, everybody in the world who's really fast that I know does some kind of heavy training. You will be hard pressed. You get a few, but it's very, very unusual anymore to find a top end martial artist that doesn't lift weights. Okay, trying to get stronger, everybody does, because stronger once you get dialed in makes you faster. Same with sprinters, same with light level throwers, and that's kind of why I did this, because if you want to look at the top end muscular, really big muscular as well as fast athletic guys, find some top end throwers. The guys at Highland Games,
Absolutely.
they're monsters. Okay. Why? And they can throw pretty heavy stuff a really long way. And that's an ability that, you know what, you want to be the guy. I want to be the guy who can pick up things other people can't pick up, and I can throw it, he can't even pick it up off the ground.
Yeah.
Again, getting better. So multiple levels you got to train there, okay? And I just mentioned those before, but once you train your max strength, you got to train multiple levels of strength and speed together, okay? The faster you can move heavier weight, compensatory acceleration, moving a heavy weight as fast as possible, the better you're going to get at very, very heavy weights that won't move fast, and at lighter things that you need to explode through. Okay. In other words, if you want to squat 700 pounds for a max and it takes you 5 seconds to get it from the, or like I did a Zerker squat with 680 and it took me like 15 seconds to get it to the top. But 500 pounds went to the top in about a second.
Very.
And 300 pounds will go to the top in about a quarter of a second. Again, every level of speed there. And 135, I can squat up hard enough that I can throw it over my head without even touching it. It's every level there, and that's a good example of maybe the 4 levels of speed there that you want to work against. Very heavy resistance, always trying to move it fast, even if it doesn't move fast. Moderate level resistance with some speed. Now, I like to train that more with like stones, with speed and lifting a stone, or like speed and snatching, like one arm snatches, that kind of thing. Some people like to dedicate very specific things to specific lifts. So for instance, Louis Simmons is a great example of that. Trains heavy lifting, but also trains very specific speed in that specific lift. So they always do speed work in squats and deadlifts. I like to split it up a different way because my objectives are different. So I want you to be able to lift a 500 pound rock, but I want you to be able to take a 250 pound rock and slam it to the top and be super quick coming off the ground, because they're going to play back and forth. And then I want you to be able to take that 50 pound rock and throw it a long way, because that 50 pound rock is going to make that 250 pound rock better, that 250 pound rock is going to make that 500 pound rock better, the 500 pound rock is going to make the 250 pound rock better, which is then going to make the 50 pound rock better. They all play back and forth. And if you wire them together with the other level, so that's 1, 2, 3, throwing being the third level, and then the fourth being the fastest things you're going to actually move, which is against no resistance. That's stuff like punching, sprinting, etc. You'll get faster, better, more explosive in that, because you have all this nervous power that's been wired against power training, and you have but then you got to do that to be your maximum. Okay, you got to have all these other levels to truly be the best you can do, and you got to practice it over and over again. But then you got to get good at your actual sport. So I mean, you tell me, and I know I'm light years personally. How much faster are you today at punching than when you first started?
A lot.
Yeah, why?
That's not a very in-depth answer, but a lot.
a lot. Well, but why? Because you learned to punch, right?
Learn to punch first.
Yeah, you learned to actually do the thing.
Yeah. And then we worked on it.
Over and over and over.
With everything you possibly could.
Right. Absolutely. Everything away. So we've got every level of strength and speed being trained there on a regular basis, and actually doing the thing technically. So if I tell you, hey, I'm going to make your hands as fast as possible, and I give you all this other training, but I don't do any hand speed training. If you don't do specific training, you're not going to get the payoff. But if you do the specific training and do the other general physical ability training, which is what this is, then you actually get the super payoff. That's when you get hands that are like freaky fast, that people can't, that kind of, that really do work that way, or speed in any other way. And part of this is set to give you speed and explosive power in any wacko general direction you can possibly get. You know what I'm saying? In the stuff that, in the ways that it's given me so much general ability to move and explode in so many different ways that I can then translate that into whatever I want, or I'm prepared for any situation, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So I'm exploding against stuff.
Well, that's actually something interesting. Most people train to which is probably the most known reason, is to look better.
Right.
B is to work on their sport.
Right.
Almost no one trains because they're going to get their truck stuck, and they might need to pull one of those wheels up for a little bit.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And that's something that can help you tremendously.
Which happened to him
like a week ago.
Well, and you mentioned two things there: getting better at sport. So anything that makes you faster, more powerful, this will help you. And this is general physical preparedness that you can then translate into specific physical preparedness. It's also, you talk about looking better. Okay, I'm kind of shocked at this. Like, okay, I'm not Mr. Super Lean, but I float back and forth with, I have like one ab that shows.
I've got one ab.
I don't mean a unit ab. I mean, like, I actually have like one little cut that shows sometimes, depending on if the light's perfect.
It's horrible. It's horrible. He takes scissors to that one part of his shirt. Walks
just for that one ab show.
He walks through Best Buy. Hey guys. What's up? What are you doing over there?
That was funny. But, okay, it all depends on, how much I'm dieting or conditioning at the moment, or just, I try to live my life in a sustainable way, okay? And if my ab shows or not, it really makes no difference. It makes no difference to anybody in my life or business or whatever. It's just something I, once in a while, I notice, oh, where'd that come from? And it's getting better. I'm getting more and more. It hangs around longer or stays around all the time.
Good,
once in a while, it has like a second little brother that'll show up every now and then.
Good, now I can break out that shirt with a hole in it.
But here's what I mean, okay? I've been doing the filming for this and doing a bunch of extensive throwing training. And I was shocked at, wake up the next day and man, I notice things about yourself. Holy crap, I'm leaner than I, was.
Went to walk through the door, we couldn't even through his triceps were that big. 2 axe handles.
And I mean that to say, throwing has a huge metabolic cost, and because it has a huge metabolic cost, it has a huge fat burning effect. And now, okay, it doesn't if you use super slow pace. And if you throw one time every 10 minutes.
Yeah, you can't take a donut break.
Yeah. Between, that's not going to work.
After 45 pounds, all right, I'll go eat a Krispy Kreme. Come back a little later.
Throw one more time. That doesn't work.
All right, I'll go back home.
But throwing has a huge metabolic cost because it is an explosion. And here's the thing about this, okay? You're going to say you were going to do max effort deadlifts. You couldn't do 50 maximum effort ones in one session and walk for a month. But you could do 50 max effort throws because the weight and resistance isn't so bad that it beats you down, but the metabolic cost is almost as powerful. Absolutely. Almost as close, because it's a faster move, but it's the same 100% contraction. Because of that, the metabolic cost is really crazy. And if you stack them together, for instance, I'm in pretty decent shape. I'm in pretty good shape. I do some pretty crazy stuff. And dude, we're out there filming this stuff, and about 30 minutes in, I'm like, I'm making them heaving, and I rarely get, I don't hardly ever get, that I'm gonna throw up.
That's why I started cutting this down now. These days are they making noise? Ooh, that's a weird noise.
But I'm telling you, it almost made me throw up a couple of times because okay, think about this. I stacked 100 throws, right about 100 throws into about a 30-minute or less time limit, and that's max effort.
And
so
that's
nonstop.
Non-stop.
Yeah, that's throw, walk to it, throw, walk to it, throw, walk to it, throw. If you use a fast pace and extremely stuff, and especially if you mix between light and heavy. So, for this particular download, I did a lot of work with a 53-pound bell because I wanted to show some different speed-based stuff. But I did some with an 80-pound bell, did some with a 150-pound bell, different throws right there. And you go back and forth between that super heavy one and that light, and so the speed is super high with one, but the effort is the same. The speed isn't quite as bad, but the effort is super huge, again, with that heavy one. And you go back and forth with them suckers with that, man, I'm like, I mean, the conditioning is amazing, and you know what? Truth is, conditioning burns fat. That's the whole point of this.
Absolutely.
So, and the other thing about being prepared for life, okay, a lot of conditioning doesn't allow you to have max effort in it, and this will actually help again pay off with your truly functional ability, your functional mass, which is what we talked about last week.
Throwing is more anaerobic, isn't it?
Well, but when you stack it together, it's aerobic.
Aerobic.
So truthfully, it's a short burst, which is an anaerobic thing. But if you stack those throws together, so it's aerobic in that your heart rate doesn't come down, and it's actually spiking. So every time you throw, wham, heart rate up, and it comes down just a hair for like 10 seconds while you walk to the other thing, and then bang again.
Up again.
And so it's actually creating a maximum anaerobic work and then also aerobic effect because of the extended duration or because of what you're doing. Now that's only if you train it that way, but there's another possible side benefit to that. And you know what? There's a couple of benefits there. If you can throw just as far or close to just as far 20 minutes in as you could the first minute, you're in pretty doggone good shape.
Yeah.
And where does that play for other people in real life? Well, if you're a fighter and you're 20 minutes into the fight and you can hit just as hard as you could the first minute, again, that's better. Most people lose, at the highest technical levels. Sometimes it's because they just purely get tricked or the whole thing, or there's a lucky move or knockout. Sometimes they're outsmarted, but a lot of times it's conditioning. Because when you get tired, that's when you make mistakes. That's when you fall apart. That's when things just don't work. So this is helping you build that upper level speed and power together and working them for all these different things. The other things you got to train there is we talked about punching, and what I want to mention there is relaxation and tension. So, okay, you punch the fastest when you're what? Relaxed?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You throw the farthest when you're smooth, which is basically relaxed. But you're a combination there. And here's why that's so practical. Most things in life, in other words, if I punch you and you're totally relaxed, it'll hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can be relaxed enough to move quickly, but tight enough quickly to defend yourself from a punch, you're much better. And most everything in life is going to require some level of tension and relaxation. The truth, mixing those together is the greatest way to speed and power.
I'll tell you what is some of the people who can get by on some of just purely being in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, some of them can be more in shape but not do as well at certain challenges because you've got to utilize all the rest you can to go as long as you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The greatest relaxation in what you do.
Yeah.
But if you're in a place where you can't relax, if somebody drops the hammer on you and doesn't let you relax, I know exactly where you're going with that. Go ahead. But
exactly. But the thing is with that is you're doing throwing. When you get up to that plate, you're on it. You're throwing it.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as it hits the ground, you've got this brief second to go. Now pick it back up again.
Right.
And you're not staying tense, which gives you more to work with, which means you can actually put more into it, get more out of it too. And so, that goes into everything. Finding that moment when you can relax. Like you can't do that way.
Yeah.
You can't do it, and that's also why it beats you up so bad.
Well, and you throw. Here's what I mean by also the relaxation, that whole thing. You don't throw like you deadlift. You do a little bit in that you're deadlifting as fast as possible, so the speed, but you don't, because when you deadlift, as an example, everything is absolutely rock hard tight the whole way. But if you grab something light and rock hard tighten yourself the whole way and go, you're going to Frankenstein it. It's going to be slow and it's not going to go far. Same as if you watch a guy who's used to all tension all the time try to grapple somebody or punch, and when they punch, it's like, it's slow. And because they haven't mastered relaxation with tension and with that explosion together.
It looks like they're trying to punch through water.
Now, a top-end punch is, and this is an example of speed, sprinting is the same way, everything else speed-wise is the same way, is a combination of that relaxation and an explosive burst of snapping tension.
Absolutely.
That's what it is, and that's what it is with sprints, that's what it is with the rest of the stuff, and this helps you master that, because you're going to throw further and further, and once you relax and have fun, got to play, you throw further.
You can't do everything full tension all the time.
No.
I grapple guys that were by far twice my size.
Mm-hmm.
But the purely only reason I could win is because I could last longer.
Right.
I'd get mangled for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But that last minute, they were so dead because even when if I'm let's say I'm holding guard or just a very almost relaxed but submissive position, I could always feel this. Even when they were in a place where they didn't actually have to do much, they were like this the whole time. They never let up. They were almost doing like a self isometric.
Yeah, yeah.
They were just burn. You could just feel them burning every last bit of energy. And in that last minute, you had a ragdoll. You could do whatever you wanted.
Right.
It was just a matter of holding out for those 5.
Right.
Where you were relaxing and building up your energy to absolutely blow that last minute.
Mm-hmm.
You're letting them work, and that's something Peter said about it. It's almost like dancing back forth.
Mm-hmm.
But it the best guys in the world were relaxed when they could be.
And they explode when they need to.
And they
explode when they need to. So it's a combination of back and forth,
Absolutely.
back and forth the whole time. Yeah.
But the guys who could be now, here's someone else you were talking about that confidence thing earlier. You always can be the best in the world. You're not. I mean, there are some. It's kind of one of those, born great for great special upon and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you can work at anything enough to get good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can. You absolutely
Like,
can. And
there's some things you can't get good at other than by luck, like Russian roulette. That's I wouldn't recommend practicing that a lot.
Well, that relaxed into explosion brings up one of the other things is priming your nerves. Because priming them through practice, through speed work. That one of the primary ways to actually prime your nerves to move quick is this throwing stuff.
Yeah.
In other words, if you get used to being able to go from a dead stop to wham, exploding all of a sudden, and both relax, tense, explode quick back and forth, you can then build that ability and apply it through the rest of life into the ways that most people can't do. So most people, like one of the things you can do with grappling or fun punching or whatever, you can see it, people who can't explode immediately, having developed that nerve priming, they telegraph.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
they telegraph anything they're going to do because they're from a punching perspective, it's easy to see a telegraph, but from grappling even too, because you'll feel them. They'll go from loose, and then they'll ramp up, and you know it's coming.
Yeah.
versus going from quick to bang immediately, and that's nerve priming. Now, throwing is one of the primary ways to do that because it actually builds that speed along with, and that's making your nerves ready to do what you've done with all the heavy training by doing it by throwing is a great way to do it. Also, isometrics with that is another great way because that actually we've seen that time again with people. You do those isometrics and then you get all of a sudden you're faster.
Mm-hmm.
You just literally are.
Absolutely.
You're just amazingly fast because you're used to that power, and then all of a sudden you take the lock resist away and
I don't care what you say. If you actually, people always are looking for the miracle pill here.
Right.
And they want something that's going to tire them out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also going to be something they can do good at, right?
Right.
Something people always mistake is it doesn't matter what it is. If it's an exercise of any kind, you can get the most out of it. But you have to be willing to put in the work.
Right.
People look at an easy exercise and go, oh, well, I can do it for so many reps. And so my preset thing for today isn't that many, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still want it to be hard. Well, that doesn't make sense. Do more reps.
Right. Do more.
Yeah, get the most out of it you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because you just can't. You can't. This also runs into conflicts with other things like, you have to have days where it's just calisthenic.
Right. Easy.
But people.
Easier days.
People walk out and they want to train and be able to say I killed it.
Mm-hmm.
But what most people view as I killed it is I walked out and I'm not that tired.
Mm-hmm.
What is actually you killed it is you got tired and kept doing it till you just absolutely could not do it anymore.
Right. You got the job done whether you're tired or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, whether you're going to be able to go to work in the morning,
Well, and there's that balance. And actually that's actually kind of why I like this throwing thing a lot because, it's what I talked about that. You can't do, I'm pretty conditioned, but I can't do 50 max reps of a squat or 50 max reps. Not maximum reps. So I can do 50 reps, but not every effort can be absolute max. But I can go out and throw 50 reps
max effort.
And get up and go the next morning. Okay. And I feel hard. I feel hard as a piece of stone. My muscles feel right. I get that same effort, but it doesn't create the same beating on the body. Now, within that, you got to be smart about how you protect the body. Okay. Don't start off, don't say, all right, I'm going to go out and throw with Bud and Noah. and I'm going to pick up a live grizzly bear and throw him the first time, or I'm going to go, or I'm going to, I'm going to pick up the heaviest stone I can lift and let's go throw that 20 times. Yeah, you're probably going to be so stupid sore the next day, or so, be intelligent. If you've never thrown, or if you're big and kind of tight and you're not used to it, work in slowly. Build some ability. I think everybody needs to be doing something on a regular basis that creates explosive flexibility, explosive mobility for their hamstrings, like swings and snatches. Because I think the easiest thing in the world to hurt is to pull something in that way because you're not used to overstretching and then applying all that speed. That's how most people pull a hamstring running or whatever to begin with. They're just not used to it. Get used to it first and start slow. You don't have to, great pitchers don't start off throwing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs. No. Great shot putters don't start off throwing 80 feet, 70 feet or whatever. You start off and don't kill yourself the first few times. Get used to the thing. Have some feel for where you're at. And once you build up and get used to it, do it. And okay, like I told him, he's seen me do the workouts and done some of them with me or whatever where, we went out and threw 100 reps. Don't do that the first day. Because you may get stupid sore. Now, here's the one thing that's funny about though, and you for the same for this, when you are used to it and you're not in a place where you're overstretching things by what you do, you actually don't really get sore.
No.
Now you get worked. You get that feeling of I did work with my muscles, but you don't get sore. And here's why: because it's all concentric. There's no lowering phase. It's not like when you push a bench press up and you push and lower it, and the lowering is what actually creates damage and makes your muscles sore. With a throw, all up, all out, no return, no negative movement to it, so you don't really get sore. The one thing I will say is this: if you are going to build up to maximum endurance type throwing, which is kind of, I don't always do it that way. Sometimes I just pick a few throws or a few explosive movements of some kind and do them as part of a workout or do them as a part of a conditioning circuit where it's not a million of them or that kind of thing, or do them like as a primer to build up to heavier weight, so I'm going to throw a little bit so I'm feeling good and up and fast and ready to go. Those are some of the primary ways to put it in your workout, but don't go out and throw 100 reps of max heavy weight effort throwing and then go try to lift a max weight the next day, or probably a maximum effort of anything unless you're super conditioned to it. Because you do burn out. And here's how you kind of judge as you go on those things is if you have a conditioning goal in mind, that's one thing. You just write it out and the conditioning goal is the deal, because we ain't, this isn't set to make you the farthest thrower of anything you're going to do. This is to make you just awesome in general. But if you get to where you're throwing and you get a throw or two in a row, 3, maybe 4 in a row where you're going short, you're not able to make the distance, if you're not from just pure exhaustion, your nerves are overworked. And because of that, you need to calm that down. So you need to switch. Now, one way to subvert that, I think, okay, and here's the difference for you, and what I like this, the same we do with that, is if you throw the same punch 500 times, by the end of the time, it doesn't matter whether you're good at it or not, it's not going to get any faster. The nerves are going to be burned out to do that.
Yeah.
But if you throw 15 different punches and spread it out, and you throw 500 total punches and it's 15 different ones, you don't generally tend to get nerve beat up because it's not so much stress on one particular nerve pattern. The same with throwing. I generally I'll throw the same throws, explosive throw a few times, but then I'll switch. I'll throw to a different variation. I may do a bunch of straight up snatch throws or like weight over the bar type throws where I throw straight up, but then I'll start throwing straight out. Or I'll throw up and to the side or up and, I'm changing the nerve pattern so I'm not over hammering any one thing. So that way I'm always kind of CNS or central nervous system fresh and not beat to death. Now, if you go out and throw 100 throws really hard, something that, or, whatever level that taxes you, might be more than that, might be less. You get really smoked where you're like, having that, that.
You make funny noises.
You very well may be really, honest to God, central nervous system taxed to the point that you need a day to recover, or tomorrow the day after that might not be the day to go. I'm gonna max squat.
Yeah.
That might be the day to do something a little easier, or do a different kind of calisthenic or conditioning workout, or do whatever. And but the day after a heavy lift might be a great day to go through like that, as far as how you put it in, because when you lifted heavy the day before, you come out and do those throws, they're going to feel pretty light. You're going to throw far, you're going to throw hard. You've sort of a reversed nervous conditioning there to go from there. I will say this: training the weak links is a big deal
Huge.
there. And you notice this when you throw stuff, or when you in martial arts, same thing. Okay, if you are doing one of those throws and your legs explode all the way through, but your fingers can't hold the weight very far, you've got all this massive body power, but your fingers were the weak link, and the throw doesn't go very far.
You got bad tires.
That's right. You got bad tires on your car or whatever. That's exactly what it is. Your transfer, your linkage is weak. Same as when you go to throw, especially a twisting throw or something like that. If you got all this massive power coming out of the legs, and your torso speed can't keep up with your leg speed because your abs aren't strong enough, you get a lousy throw. So that is a way to kind of get, if you're not careful, okay, if you do a real complicated throw or work at too many reps, you can get a little tweaked because you got a weakness that's trying to keep up. So what you're actually doing is getting a massive production out of your legs, but you're getting an over 100% try production out of your abdominals, which is bad, which is why everybody gets. So here's what it will help you do. It will help you find weak links, because you're starting to throw, you'll feel it, and you're like, crap, I lost the grip. Now I know my grip is weak. Or I know that I went to throw and I felt my whole body go, and my shoulder was so tight when the pressure came up through my legs all the way through my arms to throw. It's a whole body thing when you throw. My arm was slow, but the rest of my body was, because I'm tight. So you got multiple types of weaknesses there: excess tension, excess lack of mobility. Same with that's why we train this, to find those linkages. And so be careful about them. Be smart as you go. If you start feeling that, either change to a different throw or just get a different thing. The mind and the start reflex, I think, is a big thing. You're fast when you think you're fast. You're fast when you condition your mind to work quickly. It's like I talked about a minute ago with the grappling, where you feel somebody just ramp up, and it's coming and coming and coming and coming. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for immediate snap and training your reflex, training yourself. One of the keys you might do this if you're working with a partner is you might actually go from a start command. So you don't even know when it's coming, but you're just ready, and as you're ready, you can bang. You can go immediately. You're really building reflex, which is, again, nerve priming. And that's another thing with speed. And that's especially another thing with speed in the real world, power in the real world, where you're doing it, in ways that you might not be ready for. So you're not ready necessarily for that sucker punch that comes, but you got to react to it anyway. Absolutely. Or you're not ready for, whatever else you might have to do. You don't necessarily get to warm up, but you got to go apply that power. Yeah. Well, again, that kind of training the mind to do that is a big thing.
It's almost like immediate. It's almost like being able to kick your adrenaline on command. Right. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing, and not allowing it to over adrenalize you. And there's the thing, there's a great opportunity to practice there. So I'm doing this and I'm doing these throws, and every one of them is max effort, but it's not the same max effort as a huge squat or deadlift. So my adrenaline doesn't quite ramp up the same way. But so in doing that, I can train at a lower threshold for my adrenaline, but I can work on controlling it. I'll tell you what else is an awesome opportunity to do. It's an awesome opportunity to learn to focus energy into a thing and throw with energy, which is what so if you're really going to get everything firing on all cylinders, not just the muscle, mind, it's the nerves, but it's also your subtle energy, chi, focus together. Well, a throw is a great time to do that focus, create that energy, push it right into what you do, and then bang, throw. And because it's just one movement right there, it's not so complicated as trying to work it into a chain movement like a martial arts or that kind of thing. It's a great way to do it, and ramp yourself up and down quickly, build the ability to do that, which is super important.
And sometimes you even have to warm up with that. Warm up if you right before you train.
Mm-hmm.
Something real simple to do is if you train outside, which is way better training inside. I got to put that in there. Unless you're in 30-degree weather, then I'm sorry, but if you're training outside, or you can even do it in a gym. If you ever notice, most of the time when you look out into a field, you're not looking at one particular blade of grass. You're not looking at one particular small detail. You're looking at the general. It's 4th of July. I forgot. You're not looking at that one thing. You're looking at the general mass in front of you. Start looking at the mass. Okay, here's what I've got. Now pick one thing in the field. Look back at the mass. Watch it it'll narrow down. Stop for a second. Keep focusing as hard as you can on that thing. Once you get down to it's literally it's just that stick or weed or whatever it is you're focusing on in that field or in your gym. Focus on that. And focus on that until you have seen some other piece of detail that you did not see on it before. Now take that exact same energy and apply it to what you want to use in your body. Like say I want to use my left arm. Okay? I'm sitting here. I feel my body. And people do this a lot of, you see most people do this for like arm wrestling. Things like that. You ever seen them? They set up. They start getting tight. They're focused on, okay, I'm here, I'm sitting down. Now they're gripping. You watch them, their hand will tighten up. Then directly they'll get in position. And then they'll coil up. And now it's just one movement off next. It's just rolling back or doing whatever you want to do. You start with the mass and work down, and then you focus on that one point, and that is what you use. All your energy will gather to that one point, and you fire it. It's just like a muzzleloader charge or anything like that. You pack it all down, you put it in there, and then it's gone. Blow it. Then you do it again.
Well, that's an excellent way to do it. Absolutely. Yeah, that's an excellent point of concentration to people that have trouble doing it, or because really when you're doing that, everything should go away.
Yeah.
There should be nothing else going on there, and if you can also visualize, not just focus visually, but you can energetically visualize compressing that way. So there's a giant ball of energy around you, and it's compressing into that one point, and then you push it literally or release it into that one point, and bang! That's when you got not only your whole body, but your subtle energy focusing together. Yeah, no, that's a brilliant way to do it, to allow it to happen, to allow it to put into one area, or to allow it to go into a throw, which is a great thing. And you'd be shocked when you do this right. You'll be like, holy crap, I can't believe that went further.
Yeah,
well,
it's weird how it will.
It does. It absolutely does. And the faster you do it, the more you're able to, okay, I believe you auto-build the ability to do that. In other words, if you do it enough times, you don't even think about. I think that's what the old time guys who talk about I use my ki to be stronger were trying to do, is they did it over and over and over again so many times that when they move, it's an automatic response for that chi to go.
Yeah.
It's not a thing where I have to think it through to make it happen. You do the first few times.
That's what makes you able to go longer.
Yeah.
Like and when you get up to something more daunting, hammer down on it. And I'll give you an example of this. A couple of weeks ago, no, last weekend, I was shooting with a couple of very, very good shooters. And, you can always tell when people are just starting out because they will take forever on what seems to be a very simple shot. Or, something just right in front of your face, they'll say it's far or something like that. That's because you don't realize it. You've seen that so many times, you're auto-focusing on it. The only thing you can't do is you can't go, that's in the bag. You say that's in the bag, it got right out of the bag.
Right.
And I was shooting with these guys, and I watched them. They get up on the last. We go 3 stations, and they go straight. They're very simple targets, but they're about medium range. There's something you still have to focus on, but you just have to be careful with. You can't let them get any leeway. And they weren't phased at all. But one of the newer shooters we were shooting with was getting tired. You could already tell he was getting a little tired just from focusing. We get to the next station, both of those guys get up there and look at the targets. Now we've got something that's incredibly hard. This thing looks like a gnat broke wind in the sky. It's nothing. It's very, very far target. An 8-inch diameter target, it's 75 yards, moving 40 miles an hour, is a hard target. And these guys get up there, and I told you they hadn't broken a single sweat. Now, again, it is hot in Florida. They get up there, when they get done shooting, they both put incredible scores up on this station, but it took them forever. They got up there. They settled into their routine. They closed the gun. They got up. They did that whole focus thing I just talked about. They did it. They looked at it. Got up in it. You could tell they were intricately planning every single minor movement they made, and when they had to let this go and where this was going to go and all this stuff. When they got off of that station, they were sweating. They were like, okay, I'm going to need a minute. And they got on the next one, ran them out. Great. Good scores, great day. But it's because they build up the energy and the endurance
to
set up that station.
Because when you first do it, it's exhausting.
Exactly. And the new guys we set up with, they actually, a couple of them did great on that station. I was, honest to God, shocked. They did great. But they were so tired when they got out of there, they were missing the simplest targets you could imagine. Because they either said, I got it in the bag, or they just could not, they had no focus left to give.
Right, right. And your focus, your intention, your subtle energy, your full body energy all tied together.
Yeah.
And when you build them all up together and when you get used to rigorous training, which is, that's like a secret to like the old time guys on the whole Shaolin thing. That physical training is actually building your mind, it's building your mental training, and it's building your mental endurance. Because now when you've done it from a hard physical thing and you have that top end mental endurance to do, now you can apply that in work, in life, or whatever, or in that their whole idea was meditation. So now I've got all this excess mental endurance. I actually can stay focused without burning myself out. Well, and you learn to do that, and throwing is a great way to start that, man.
Absolutely.
A great way to do that, yeah. All right. Anything you'd like to say?
Are we out?
We're about out of time, so we're gonna close here.
We need a theme song.
You need a theme song?
No?
All right.
I think I'm good.
Well, thank you all for joining us, for hanging out or whatever, and I hope you enjoyed the topics on confidence and also on explosive training. And I hope you learned a lot, and we got some unique discussion here and some cool things. So I hope you enjoyed them, and I look forward to talking to everybody, hearing about it. And also I hope you look forward to getting the downloads. So take care. Thank you again for joining us. And this is my son Noah, Bud Jeffries. We're hanging out here. You can find us on strongerman.com, noahjeffries.org.
Yep. I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
You guys have a happy 4th of July.
That's right.
And remember all the men and women that fought for us and gave y'all ultimate sacrifice.
Amen.
And
Amen.
if you don't, I gotta say this because I got a pet peeve about it. If you ever in your life pass by someone that's, I'm in the wrong way, excuse me. Pass by someone that you know has made a sacrifice, or you see somebody like in a veteran's cap or something like that, it does not take that much of your freaking energy to stop and say thank you. You can do it. It's not gonna be treacherous upon your day.
Well, have the confidence to do it. Be sensitive if they're having a family moment. Don't do it. But if I agree. If you have the opportunity and it's not going to disturb that person, definitely say hello. Then say thank you. And he's right. Happy 4th of July, everybody. God bless you all. Thanks. Take care. I know what you're playing.